Hi everyone, it's Trishna. Happy Sunday. We're beginning our Facebook Live videos again. I'm super excited. If you are on replay or watching here live, say hi. I love it when people say hi or comment. And if you're commenting on replay, I always come back and reply or like, etc. So today I want to talk about something that I think is a really exciting topic. It is my favorite topic, and you may already know this, which is the law of attraction. But I want to talk about a few different aspects of the self in relation to the law of attraction so we can better understand how everything works from an energetic perspective and how to apply it here in the physical and into actual action steps. So today I want to talk about the soul, I want to talk about the higher self, and I want to talk about the mind. And I want to talk about how all three of those aspects work together and how to work with each one of those aspects within yourself in order to manifest the desires that you want, in order to work better with the law of attraction and bring about the reality that you desire. So, I'm going to start off by first talking about some of the more theoretical, conceptual aspects of how all three work together, what each of these elements does when it comes to manifesting our desires, and then I'm going to go into some more specific information around problems that you may have come across while going about the spiritual or psychic journey or the manifestation journey. So if you have been struggling with manifestation, we're going to answer some questions around that. If you have been reading into the energies and sometimes you get different answers for the same question, we'll go into why that is as well. And then at the very end, I'm going to basically lay out 7 action steps, a whole process of how you can work with the soul, the mind, and the higher self in a very methodical way that will really help you manifest your desires. So before we get into that, I want to show you a diagram, and this camera that I'm using is a new camera and it's not really going to focus on what I'm about to show you. It's going to be very blurry, but you'll see that it's a triangle, which I guess is what I'm trying to point out, and one day I will figure out my camera settings, but this is a new camera. So let's see, you can see, yeah, super blurry. All right, well, I'm just going to very quickly point out, we have here the soul, here the mind, and here the higher self. And there is a connection point between the soul and the higher self. I wrote co-wisdom. And then there is a connection point between the soul and the mind. I wrote co-decisions. And then there's a connection point between the higher self and the mind, which I wrote co-creation. And we're going to talk about all of this. Just know that it's a triangle and the higher self is at the top, and I put soul on the left and mind on the right. And they all have connection points between them. All right, so we have 3 aspects of ourselves that are very heavily involved in manifesting our desires and bringing balance within the self and really helping us navigate the world and find clarity in the world around us and within ourselves. There's also other aspects, for example, the heart, which if inspired, I may talk about in a future video, but in this one I want to focus on these 3 aspects. So first of all, we have the mind. The mind is essentially us here in the physical, the part that we most identify with, the part that we are most aware of. And this mind is us, and we go about this physical reality. We came here in a physical form. We go about this physical world, and as we go about this physical world, we develop preferences. We go out and we have all these experiences, and some experiences are very pleasant, and we're like, yeah, I really like that. Some experiences are very unpleasant, and we're like, oh my God, I hate that. Some experiences are a mixture of the two, and we're like, well, I like this, but I didn't like that. So as we go about our lives here in the physical, exploring the world, trying out new things, having certain things just happen to us, we develop these preferences. We start developing this list of pros and cons of the things that we like in life. And a lot of times we're not consciously doing that. We're not sitting there being like, okay, well, I like this and I didn't like this. I like this, but I didn't like this. But even though we are not consciously recording this anywhere, whether we're consciously thinking of it or creating a physical list, it is being stored within the subconscious and also within the soul and the higher self. So we're constantly basically exploring and gathering information on our reality and how we personally relate to that. So that is the mind. The mind is here to explore. It's here to experience, and it's here to have preferences and not to have dislikes. There is another important portion of the mind, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, the soul is the next part that I want to talk about. The soul is the aspect of you that is deep within. When you feel something really happy, or whenever you're connecting to a moment and it really speaks to you, when you resonate with something, That is your soul shining through and being like, I like that. Your soul, what it wants for you is for you to have happiness. At the end of the day, everything that you want, anything that you want to manifest because it's going to make you happier or you believe it's going to make you happier. If you want to have love in your life, it's because you believe it's going to make you feel better than where you are right now. If you are in a relationship but you don't want to be in that relationship anymore, it's because you feel like you'd be feeling better outside of the relationship than in the relationship. If you want a car, it's because you feel like life would be better. I would feel better if I have that car. If you want more money, the same thing. If I want a different job, it's because that job will make me happier than where I am right now. Even if you're looking for your purpose, you're looking for your purpose because you feel like if you had this idea of what you're supposed to do, if you could find this sense of fulfillment, you feel so much better. If you're confused and you're looking for clarity, again, it's because you're confused and that doesn't feel good. And you want certainty or you want clarity because you know that's going to feel better. So everything that you want, everything that you desire, that you look about in the world with your mind through your preferences and dislikes, all of that is tied to your soul because your soul ultimately wants for you happiness. So that is what the soul's job is. It is that center point. It is a more grounded aspect of you that essentially wants your happiness and is very wise in that it knows what would bring you happiness and what would not bring you happiness. And we'll talk about all these connections in a moment. But next I want to talk about the higher self. So the higher self is the aspect of us that is the complete us. So there is a God version of us, and part of that is here in this physical body, but in this physical body, we're trapped by our physical minds. We can only see really what's in front of us, or maybe a few steps in front of that. But the higher self contains the completeness of all that we are. And it knows, it has a good idea based off of its connection with the soul, because it communicates with the soul, on where we need to go. And it knows, based off its communication with the mind, exactly what preferences we have and dislikes we have. And essentially, the higher self is the aspect of us that is the guide. It guides us along our journey because it communicates with our soul and knows what would truly make us happy. And it communicates with our mind and is what is holding, whether again we are conscious of what we like and dislike or writing it down or not. The higher self is connecting to subconscious and knows all of your preferences and dislikes here in the physical, and it is guiding the guiding point in between that guides your preferences and dislikes in relation to what would truly make you happy and helps you navigate the world. So those are at a high level the three different aspects of us that are very important to manifesting our desires. And give me a moment here. Okay. All right. So how does this all work together? Okay, so you go about your life in the physical, building these preferences, building these dislikes. That gets transferred up to the higher self. So it's recording all of this and holding it, and it knows everything that you want. Everything that you want, that you like, it has created for you. You may not see it yet because you need to align with it, but it has already created the moment that you like something and you want it. It's already up there. Even if you don't consciously know that you want something, your higher self always knows because it's always continuously communicating with you, even if you are not consciously communicating with it. So you develop all these preferences and these dislikes. And sometimes we manifest things that are great when we manifest them, but somehow they don't always fulfill us in the ways that we want. And a lot of times the reason why that happens is because your mind selected what it wanted, your higher self heard it and created it, and you aligned with it. But you forgot to check in with your soul on whether or not that was really the version, the external expression of happiness that you were looking for. So it is okay to manifest without the soul. You can certainly do that without checking in with your soul because still your mind is able to pick up on things that you like and dislike, and maybe it's not going to get it as perfectly, but it's still going to be in the vicinity. But generally, it is better to check in with the soul. So you build all these preferences and you're like, hey, I want this. This is what I want in my life, and I think it should look like this. Okay, before you go out and try to manifest it, and again, everything that you want is already created, but before you try to align with it to bring that version of what you want into reality, it's a good idea to check in with your soul. And we'll talk about how to check in with your soul in a moment. But essentially, you want to check in with your soul, and you just want to be like, hey, if I received this desire and I had it right now, would I truly be happy? And you just feel in and just feel, do you feel excited? Do you feel happy? Does this feel empowering? Do you feel like your spirit is rising? Or is there something that feels a little off? Do you feel a little bit uncomfortable? Do you feel a little bit of tightness? And that will indicate whether or not what you're going after mentally is what would truly make you happy deep down at the soul level if you were to receive it. Now, if the answer is no, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you're completely off. Remember, whatever you're looking for from the mental perspective is in the vicinity. You've come out here and you're here to explore and you're here to decide things that you like and you don't like. Spirit can't do that. Spirit doesn't have a physical body. It's not having these experiences. Only you can do that part. And that's why your mind is so important and not something to disregard. A lot of people like to disregard the mind or disregard the logic. Those that are in the spiritual community, a lot of times they like to do that. But the mind and the logic are actually very important aspects of the creation process because spirit can't create without you having preferences and dislikes. So whatever your dislikes or whatever your likes are, if your soul is like, no, that doesn't mean that you're off. It doesn't mean that you have to start all over. It means that you're in the vicinity, you just need to refine it a little bit. So then what you do is maybe you ask your soul, okay, you're saying that I wouldn't like this. Do you know why? And maybe you'll get an answer. But if not, then just think mentally, okay, if I were to truly have this, what would be the pros and cons of this? So, maybe you would like to work at a particular company that's different from where you're working right now, but it's a company where you'd have to work in the office. And that's what you've always been doing. But there's a part of you that hasn't realized yet that you don't want to work in an office, you want to work remotely. And so this job could have a lot of qualities that would make you happy, but there's a very important quality that would not make you very happy. And that's why it's saying no. So then you can simply change your mental desire to be, I want a job like this that also allows me to work from home. Or I want this job, but I want it to be remote. And then you can manifest that version of this job. Whether or not it's written on paper as an option, you get to decide what you manifest, and your soul can help you refine what that is so that whenever you get to your manifestation, it is what would truly make you happy, and you can do it in a quicker step versus manifesting that job, but it being in an office, and then you realizing like, well, this is great, except that I'm in an office and I don't want that anymore. Then you have to do a whole new manifestation. So the soul can really help you leapfrog to where you want to be without having to go through so many manifestation steps. Again, you don't really have to check in with the soul because ultimately you will get where you need to be or where you want to be if you work with the mind and the higher self. But if you want to get there faster and a little bit more smoothly, it is definitely very helpful to connect with the soul because your soul is the center holder, the grounded aspect of you that knows what would truly make you happy. And the mind is the one giving it ideas on versions or expressions of that happiness, and the soul just kind of helps you refine what those expressions should look like. Okay. So once you have this idea of what you want and you've refined it with your soul and you're feeling really good about it, and again, when you want to keep refining your desire until you feel good about it, you feel excited about it, until your soul is just like, yeah, that's what I want. And you feel uplifted and empowered and just excited about it. That's when you know, okay, this is really what I want. This is worth putting my manifestation, my alignment energy towards because it feels amazing. So once you do that, there are going to be periods of time when you doubt being able to have your desire. Be like, okay, this is great in theory. If I had this, it'd be awesome, but I don't have it. Here I am right here, and here's where what I want is. And sometimes that gap can feel very large. So the mind's job now is to bridge that gap. And the way to bridge that gap is to be very honest about where you are and to, through self-love and through healing, allow yourself to understand that you are worthy of the desire that you want right now. There is nothing that you need to learn. There's nothing that you need to do. There's no one that you need to meet. Right now, you're worthy of your desire. And simply your work is to get closer and closer to that belief. And if you would like to know how to do that more specifically, I do have some videos on my YouTube channel in my Law of Attraction playlist. There's a set of like 7 or 8 videos that are very crucial, that are the foundation of Law of Attraction work. And in that set, I believe it's videos 3, 4, and 5. There's 3 of those videos that are around how to heal around your desires. So if you follow that process, that will get you exactly where you need to where you need to go in order to close the mental gap that you have between where you are and where you want to be, and understanding that you're worthy of all that you want right now. Because the bridge between where you are and where you want to be is always self-love. And I will be linking in this Facebook group the 2 videos that I have around self-love, because they are extremely important to law of attraction. And if I were to say that there's anything that you'd work on, it's probably that self-love in relation to all of your big desires. Okay, and for those of you watching on YouTube, the videos are already up on YouTube. Okay, so essentially the mind then has to bridge the gap. The mind first looks out into the world and is like, this is what I want to create. Great, that's why it's a co-creator. You need the mind to know what to create. Spirit doesn't know what to create, it's not here having a physical experience. Okay, then you refine what that is with your soul. So the mind makes the decisions and the soul makes the decisions together. The mind looks out, I want this. The soul says, I'm not so sure about that. Let's refine it. And together there's a decision on what should be manifested that would bring about your happiness. Then the mind closes the gap. As the mind closes the gap through self-love, through healing, through any kind of alignment work. And here's where I want to point out that, again, whenever you are trying to manifest something, whatever your desire is, it has already been created. All versions of that desire have already been created, including the one that your soul really wants. And so whenever you're doing manifestation work, whenever you're doing visualizing, scripting, vision boards, healing work, etc., you're not doing any of that. Intention setting, you're not doing any of that to create your desire. Affirmations, you're not doing that to create your desire. Your desire has already been created. It's instantaneous. Your higher self is always paying attention, always knows what you want, always ready to support you. So you're not creating your desire with any of this alignment manifestation work. All that you are doing when you're doing visualization, affirmations, healing work, all of these things, scripting, all that you're doing when you're doing that is aligning to your desire, getting closer, closing that gap between where you are and where you want to be, closing that mental gap that you have, that belief gap, that lack of self-love gap that you have, and practicing the vibration. All of this is helping you practice the vibration of your desire, so that when you practice that vibration and it becomes more dominant in your energy field, you are now a match to that desire. Remember, law of attraction is about the vibrational match. So all this manifestation work is changing your vibration to be like that of your desire. And when you are like that of your desire, you slip right into the reality, the version of you that has what you want. Okay, so that is a mental work. So when you're doing that mental work, you're looking at and refining with your mind, and then you're closing that gap, and that is creating it. That is you are being a co-creator, and you're being a co-creator with the higher self. Because the higher self, again, knows exactly what you want, already has it ready for you. It's there, it's done. But your higher self, as you close that gap with your mind, you will start feeling better. And as you feel better, you'll start getting inspired action, not just any action, but inspired action. You'll start getting downloads. You'll start getting ideas. You'll start getting the right people on your path. You'll start getting help from others. You'll start getting information through the form of books, or through the form of videos that you watch, or through the form of just having a conversation with a person and they say the right thing at the right time that's perfect, just what you needed. That is your higher self guiding you and guiding others for you guys to meet up and share the information or get inspired to act in a particular way. So your higher self is co-creating with you. You do the creation part by looking out and seeing what you want, and then closing the gap so you are a vibrational match. The more of a vibrational match you are, your higher self is able to pick up on that, and you guys get closer, and your higher self is co-creating with you by putting the inspiration in you, the path before you to get to where you need to be. So, the soul and mind make decisions together. The mind and higher self co-create together and help each other out and guide each other and all that good stuff. The higher self and soul are the ones that have the wisdom together. The soul having the wisdom of what would truly make you happy, and the higher self having the wisdom of being able to connect to your soul to know what that happiness is, being able to connect to the mind to know the preferences that you have and create it automatically because the mind is what creates. And then also having the wisdom of knowing the whole playing field and how to navigate you in the quickest possible way to exactly where you need to be, so long as you do the alignment work to close that gap. So that is how all of this works together. And give me a second here. Okay, great. Facebook has changed its platform and I like it, but I can't always see everything that I need to see. Okay. All right, so that was a lot. Again, if you have any questions, please let me know in the comments below. There is one last thing that I want to mention around that before we get into things that are a little bit more specific that we can talk about. Okay, so the soul, being the holder of what would truly make you happy, is the center point. So if you ever want to find your center or ground, it's a really good idea to connect with your soul and simply listen to what your soul wants to bring up. And I have a meditation for that I do that is amazing because it does make me feel very grounded, very centered. It does really help me not get as ruffled by little things. And it really is a wonderful meditation to basically combine all aspects of myself, both the positive and the negative, the light and the shadows, in a way that like really integrates together and therefore puts me even more in my power because I'm not operating just half or like portions. I'm operating completely as a whole. And it's very easy meditation to do. And it's really not like, it's something that comes from like the ancients. So it's like a very, it's basically a Hindu meditation of clearing the mind. But I include a few more aspects to it to kind of help really bring it all together and really help with the manifestation process as well, and also just the overall feeling like good, because meditation is powerful because it makes you feel good. When you feel good, you're in more self-love mode. When you're in more self-love mode, it's a lot easier to close that gap of the mind, and therefore easier for the higher self to give you information and to get you right where you need to be to the creation that is already there. Okay, so the soul is the center. It generally stays the same. It generally doesn't change its views. It sometimes can, depending on what preferences and experiences that you have, because it's a communication between, co-decision between the soul and the mind. But overall, the soul is a very strong, grounded center point that has this very nice overall version of what would make you happy. And actually, I have a friend, John, he's in this group, who pointed out one of the things, pointed out like a very high level thing, like aspect of what my soul desires, that I think is a really good example. My soul desires accomplishment. Accomplishment ultimately is what I'm looking for. Now, of course, there are preferences on how I want to be accomplished, things that I want to achieve. But at the end of the day, the underlying undertone is accomplishment. And so that's always going to stay, and there are going to be certain preferences where my soul is going to gravitate towards, but there can sometimes be little fluctuations in what that looks like on the physical level, depending on what experiences I have, so long as it ties in to the true desire of accomplishment. That's what will bring me happiness. So that is the soul. And then the thing that I want to mention about the mind and the higher self is those two are always very much in flux. And those two are very much about closing the gap. The mind, you must close the gap with your mind between where you are and where you want to be. We've already talked about that. The higher self is closing the gap between your soul's happiness and where you are right now in this moment based off of your mental mindset work. And it's constantly navigating the information that it's sharing with you based off of where it knows you want to be and where you currently are. That is why sometimes you will get guidance from downloads, or if you're talking to your guides or your higher self, and it says one thing one day, but then it says sometimes the opposite the other day. It's because of where you currently are with your mental mindset work. So if you are not doing your mental mindset work, then it's going to be very hard for you to manifest, because your higher self can only give you information based off of where you are. If you're not making any moves, you're just going to get the same information over and over, and you're going to get caught up in a loop. And that might be why, if you're trying to manifest something, you're not making any progress, because you're caught up in a loop. And yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But essentially, as you do your mindset work, you're going to be shifting where you are vibrationally and mentally, so your higher self can give you new guidance that will help you along on your journey because you are making the moves as well. It's co-creation together. So both the higher self and the mind are very much in flux. Actually, everything in the universe is in flux all the time because energies are moving. We're having different reactions to things. We're learning new things and having new thoughts and ideas. So everything is always in flux. And again, the soul is slightly in flux, though it is the most grounded portion and is like that center point. But the higher self and mind are very in flux. As you go about your world and you see new things and you want new things, you're constantly fluctuating the things that you are creating, and your higher self is constantly responding to where you are in that moment, in that moment, in that moment, and also is in flux as a result. So if you have ever been doing readings or connecting with your guides or something and you feel like the answer keeps changing or keeps altering or keeps like evolving or something, just know now you know why. It's because you are in flux, so the guidance is shifting with you, and that's okay. If you're moving forward, that's good. If you're moving backwards, then that's a good indicator that maybe you need to be doing more of your mindset work, practicing the vibration to get you to where you want to be. You'll get the guidance to where you want to be. Okay. All right. And yeah, so the mind and the higher self are both bridges. With the mind, you're bridging where you are to where you want to be, and with your higher self, it's bridging your soul and where you currently are. Okay. So now let's get into some more aspects of this. So we've already talked about how everything is in flux. We talked about that. We talked about the bridges. And I've touched a little bit on each one of these, but I want to go a little bit further. So, okay. We've talked about self-love and how that is the bridge. That is the mental bridge that you're having to make. Again, I have videos on that if you would like to learn a little bit more about that. They're channeled messages, and I think that they're very powerful. I've gotten some good feedback on them. So that will really help you with that work and a lot of the mindsets around that and really understanding how powerful it is and how you already know how to do it and why, and also why you overcomplicate it. And by you, I mean all of us, because I do too. All right. Okay. So when you're manifesting, I see two different approaches when it comes to law of attraction. There are those who are a little bit less spiritually focused, who don't really include the higher self so much and really focus entirely on the mind and are very action oriented. And then there are those in the spiritual community who kind of downplay the value of the mind and logic and focus only on, well, whatever my higher self says, that's what I'm going to do, and I'm not really going to think about it very much. I'm just going to do whatever it says to do as soon as it tells me to do it. Or I'm going to check in every day and ask what I'm supposed to do. So neither approach really is that great, and I can speak to that because I have tested both out, the first one for several years, the other one for several other years, and neither one will give you the sense of fulfillment that you're looking for. If I were to pick one, it would be a version of the first one over the higher self one. So for those of you who are not very intuitive or psychic, you can definitely create your reality without any kind of psychic ability. And I'm just going to go into why the pros and cons for each. So the thing is you can't just rely on your higher self. You can't just sit there every day and ask it, what do I need to do to bring X, Y, Z? Because even though you may be thinking that you are of a spiritual only perspective, you're still trying to get action out. And that is okay, because if it's coming from the higher self, there is at least a somewhat inspired aspect to it. But if you're not doing the mental work as well, then you're going to keep getting the same advice. Or again, you're not going to move very far. And we talked about this just a moment ago, where if you're not closing the mental gap, your higher self can only give you guidance in the vicinity of where you are. So yes, it can maybe move you a little forward, but it's really, you're just going to be stuck in a loop and not really moving at the pace that you would like to, because you're not doing the mental mindset work of aligning your own energy. And if you're not aligning your own energy, then you're not moving forward, and then your higher self can't give you any new kind of guidance. So you are a very important part of the co-creation process. You are not the biggest part, but you are very much an equal part. And your higher self can't do it without you doing your part as well. So if you're someone who only focuses on the higher self and is just like, just tell me what I need to do today, or just make this happen for me, or tell me like what decision I'm supposed to make, or what I'm supposed to want to do, like what my purpose is supposed to be, It's really important that, and if you're not getting a lot of success with that, if you're getting success with that, then by all means do what works for you. But if you're not getting success from that, then don't forget the mental aspect of, okay, it's not just about what your higher self says your purpose is supposed to be. You are here in the physical to explore and decide what you want to be, like how you want it to go. Your only purpose is the underlying purpose of your soul, which is to find happiness. How you go about it, you refine through your personality, your physical self, your mind, what you like. Someone else has we all have the exact same purpose, to find happiness and to grow in self-love. But each person goes about it differently because each person is a different physical entity that has different preferences. And so they're going to channel their purpose through what they like. It's not something that you receive from your higher self. It's something that you have to decide while you're here. Because your heart, like, I feel like I'm kind of beating this down a lot, but you are here for a reason in a physical body. It's because only you can do the exploration work here in the physical. Only you can take things to the next level with preferences and dislikes. Only you can create that kind of gap that needs to be closed. And evolution happens when you close the gap, when you get from where you want to be, from where you are to where you want to be, always moving forward, progressing. Okay, so working only with the higher self is not going to get you that far, or it's going to be a very painful journey. Okay, then the other side is using the mind only, as though logic is the only thing that's important. Okay, here's the thing, is if you're manifesting only using your mind, you're completely limiting yourself because your mind can't see to the extent that your higher self can see. Your mind, again, is limited in its perception. It can only see a few steps in front of it, and it usually does not see the best path ahead. It usually sees difficult paths ahead. So, and the mind always wants to act without inspiration, and that's because the mind is easily conditioned. And we've been conditioned to act first, or to always act, or to always hustle, and that is not the way to get what you want. If you act through your mind and your logic only, you're gonna find that you are doing a lot of work but getting very little results. So it's very important that you use the mind, but you don't do action work, and you don't allow the mind to guide you or create the plan. The mind creates where you're going. The mind decides that with the soul. But the higher self is the one that creates the plan between where you are and where you want to go if you do the mental work of bridging the gap. You don't create the plan. Your higher self is the one that creates the plan. You don't create the how, you just create the what. And you bridge the gap to that through self-exploration, visualization, any kind of alignment work that makes you feel better about your desire. Okay, I think I got that point across, I hope. All right. Yep. And if you follow the mind and its plan, you'll find yourself very burnt out. You'll find yourself not being able to do what you're supposed to do. If you create like a physical plan of all these to-do lists, you'll find yourself procrastinating after a while. At first, you might be excited about it, like, oh, this is a new thing. I'm going to do all this stuff, and you might get some momentum. But then if you're not aligning constantly or bridging the gap, then you're going to get bogged down by the things that are happening to you. And you'll notice that sometimes projects are easier to start than they are to continue. The middle part of a project usually is the hardest part. Some people are great at starting, some people are great at finishing, but very few people are good at doing the middle part, and that's because it's being too mental, too mind oriented. You have to do the inspired action, not just any action, unless you are in a situation where you have to do required action. For example, at a job, sometimes there are deadlines, sometimes there's things that you just have to do and you don't get to be inspired about it yet. So then what you have to do is you have to inspire yourself to do those things that you have to do. But ultimately, what you're moving towards is anytime that you can, do inspired action over any other kind of action. Okay, I move on now. All right, so, okay. Yeah, and then we talked about that already. Great. Whenever you're manifesting, you want to focus on the end goal. Again, you don't make the plan in between. So focus on the end goal. And we already talked about that. Visualizing is not about creating it, it's about aligning to it. Okay, so we are nearing the end. We're going to finalize this with an action plan, a 7-step plan on how to use all this information together in a very practical way, because it was a lot of theory, a lot of conceptual information, and now how do we actually ground this into something that I can actually use so I can actually manifest stuff? Okay. Step number 1 of the 7 steps is life gives you experiences. You go about life. Sometimes you get invited to something. Sometimes something happens to you. Sometimes something good, something bad. Experiences are constantly happening to you, especially when you're younger. As you get older, you have a little bit more choice on what experiences you choose, but when you're younger, you don't really have a lot of control. So experiences are constantly happening to you. So that's number 1. That is just life happening, sometimes as orchestrated by your higher self to give you certain experiences to help you refine what you're looking for. So life happens. What happens next is then, as you're going through your life and experiencing different things, your mind develops preferences, things that it likes, things that it doesn't like, and out of that, desires are born. I like this, I want this. I don't like this, so I want the opposite of that. So desires are born through the mind first. And of course, once it is built in the mind, it is already created by your higher self. Step 3 is, what you want to do is, as you have desires, then you want to just check in with your soul. You don't have to do this step, but it will make the journey smoother. Is you have a desire that life gave you. Now you want to refine it with your soul, check in with your soul. And here's where I'll talk about how to check in with your soul. So essentially what you want to do is you want to get in a very calm, relaxed kind of state. So you might want to go for a relaxing walk. You might want to drink some relaxing tea. You might want to take a very warm, relaxing bath, or you might just want to meditate. I personally just meditate a little bit, clear my mind, just kind of calm down. As you're doing any of these things, or you can do a combination of them to relax, you're kind of lightly aware of what your desire is that you want to check in with your soul. Just kind of lightly just thinking about it and like, yeah, this is probably what I'm going to ask my soul about. Once you're in this more relaxed state and you're feeling pretty good, then you want to check in with your soul. And that's when you just want to ask your soul, hey, I am interested in this. If I were to receive it right now, how would I feel? Would I truly be happy? And then just kind of sit and just feel the answer. Feel that answer. Again, am I excited? Does it feel good? Do I feel happy? Do I feel powerful? Or do I feel like I want to hold back? Do I feel like that's not it? Do I feel uncomfortable? Does something in me feel tense in my body? Okay? And then you essentially go back and forth with the soul and the mind, refining your desire until you feel happy, until you feel really good and excited about it. So that's step 3. Step 1 was life gives you experiences. Step 2, or you select some of your own and different things happen in those experiences. You select a job and you think it's one thing, but then it becomes something else, and that helps you build preferences and dislikes. So life gives you experiences. 2, the mind develops desires through those experiences and preferences. 3, you check in with the soul and refine what you want to manifest between your mind and your soul. Co-decision making. Step 4 is now you know what you want. Now you know it feels happy, it feels good. Of course, there are going to be times when you don't believe that you can have it. So you want to close that mind and build the belief. You don't have to be 100% belief, but you just need to move in that direction. The universe, your higher self, will give you so much benefit. Like it will just, if you just make that effort, it's just going to swoop in and try to help you. But you have to make the effort of closing the gap between where you currently are and where you now know that you want to be. And you close that gap through any kind of alignment work or any kind of belief work or self-love work that allows you to understand that you are worthy of your desire here and now. Focusing on the end goal, and again, if you need help with that, I have 3 videos in my Law of Attraction playlist. I believe it's videos 3, 4, and 5, but you'll see that it says part 1, part 2, part 3 around how to heal your energy blocks, and that will take care of that for you. All right, that was step 4. Step 5 is you've been doing this energy work, and your higher self is going to step in whenever it can to guide you through ideas, through inspired action, emphasis on the word inspired, through downloads, through people, through help, through information. Step 6 is continue doing step 4 and 5. Step 4 being your mindset work, feeling good about your desire, closer and closer, feeling better and better about it, and listening to your higher self for inspired action or inspired information only. And you keep doing 4 and 5. Also, the important thing to note is sometimes there is a time delay, which you are all aware of. We are all painfully aware of this time delay, but it doesn't have to be painful if you understand that the time delay does not mean that you did anything wrong. It does not mean that you need to manifest harder. Sometimes there's just this time delay. And it's actually in a very important part of the process because the universe does not like a vacuum. It does not like a vacuum. It does not like a void. It wants to fill it. So when there's something that you want, and then there is this vacuum of nothing happening, or why isn't anything happening? If you allow that vacuum to exist, if you allow the silence to exist, if you allow the nothingness to happen, and you don't beat yourself up about it, just let it happen and just keep doing your mindset work and listening for the higher self guidance whenever it comes to you. The universe will fill that gap with your manifestation because it must. And that is step number 7. That is when you get your manifestation. So that quiet place is something that we are not taught. It's something that we have been conditioned out of because again, we've been conditioned in this action-oriented do mentality where you always need to be acting, and if you're not achieving your goals, it's because you're not doing enough. When in reality, it's that you're doing too much. And we have grown a very strong discomfort with the quiet aspect of us, with the resting, with the relaxation, which is the more feminine energy. So we're very, very comfortable with the masculine energy, but we forget about the feminine energy of just allowing things to fill in, allowing the void to be filled by the universe. So those are the 7 steps. Life gives you experiences. The mind develops preferences and desires. 3, you check in and refine those desires with your soul. 4, you do your mindset work to close the gap between your desire. 5, you do inspired action only. 6, you keep going back and forth with the mindset work and inspired action when requested. And also you feel comfortable in the waiting period, in the quiet, in the womb. And 7, your manifestation will come. When I started appreciating the quiet period, my manifestations came so much faster. So much faster. That is like, I feel like that is such a big key that people need to be more aware of because it really helps. So that is what I have to share with you today. If you have any questions, please let me know. My video, of course, went way longer than I expected. I wanted it to be 20 minutes. It is 42 minutes, but that's okay. Oh, and I got comments. Hi, Dora. Yes, I know. I'm finally back on live. And yeah, I was super excited to get back on here. And I have a lot to do today, but I was like, no, I gotta get on here. And I was very inspired to talk about this topic. So yeah. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Again, let me know if you have any questions. And if you're not currently in the Facebook group and you're watching this somewhere else, join the Facebook group if you are interested, because I do more live videos like this and you can interact with me more personally through comments or through live comments on a video. I do respond to all my YouTube comments as well. And yeah, I will see you in my next video.